Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are probably going to be talking about one of the biggest horror icons of all time, Michael Myers. I absolutely adore the Halloween franchise, and if you're watching this video, you probably do too. But today I wanted to look at his most controversial films and his most recent endeavor, the Blumhouse Halloween Trilogy. Blumhouse is a film studio known for their low-budget horror movies, and in my opinion, their filmography is a bit of a mixed bag. With every Hush, you also have your Sinister 2 and your Imaginaries. So let's see what Blumhouse got right and what they got wrong with good old Mikey. And if you love watching me talk about horror movies, then you should definitely subscribe to the channel. Starting off with Halloween 2018, I can confidently say this was definitely the best film out of the Blumhouse trilogy. The Blumhouse timeline chooses to ignore everything else besides the first film from 1978 and have this entire trilogy take place many years later. This was also one of the first horror movies that started the legacy sequel trend, and I think this was one of the most successful and best versions of that outcome. There is so much to love about this film, and the intro for it still gives me chills to this day. The story follows Laurie Strode and her new family all these years later after the original movie. Her family thinks she's batshit insane because she's still paranoid and has a lot of trauma from what she experienced all those years ago. And the film really focuses on Laurie Strode's trauma and how it gets passed down to the rest of her family. And that to me is the biggest strength of this movie, getting to see what Laurie's been up to all these years later. Her dynamic with her family is very messy and tragic, and when Michael starts going after them, you can really start to feel bad for these characters. Another thing that Halloween 2018 absolutely nails is the vibes, man. I love the way Haddonfield looks in this movie. It feels lived in, it looks great on Halloween night, getting to see all the decorations around, going into different people's houses with Michael. They just absolutely nailed it. Another thing I really enjoyed about this film was the kills. I know that this film really focuses on story, but the kills we do get are brutal, and it really showcases how evil this version of Michael Myers is. It also showcases how strong he is too. He's just casually lifting up people, slamming them into walls with absolute ease. For the most part, they try to keep Michael pretty grounded and realistic in these movies, but I do enjoy how much they showcase his strength, but we're gonna get to that grounded and realism a little bit later in the review. Another thing I absolutely loved about Halloween 2018 is the cinematography. This movie just looks so beautiful, and visually, I definitely think it's one of the best looking Halloween movies. This movie is also super terrifying in my opinion. There's a great sequence where a kid is repeatedly telling his babysitter that someone is in his closet, that someone being Michael. She doesn't believe him, so whenever you actually get to the scene of him going after her and getting her, it makes it so much better because you build up that suspense. I also really enjoy the dynamic between Laurie and Michael in this film, but also the rest of the films. She's fully prepared to have to fight Michael every chance she gets, and she wants him dead. And you truly feel the hatred that both of them have for each other. Leading into the great fight scene between the two near the end as she's protecting her granddaughter and her daughter against Michael, and you get to see Michael burn up in flames, leading people to believe that he's gone, but we all know he's not truly gone, leading into Halloween Kills. I still really love Halloween 2018, and I consider it to be one of the best films in the entire franchise, but now let's get straight into Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills is the bigger and better sequel that decides to focus on the kills, hence the name. The film takes place right after the ending of Halloween 2018. And this is the movie where things start to get a little bit divisive, especially with Halloween fans. And personally, I really like this movie, and I think it's a really good sequel, but it's definitely got a lot of flaws, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Getting into the things I do like about this film, I think they absolutely nailed all of the kills in this movie. I like that every kill is different, there's no repeats, and Michael is probably at his most brutal and gory in this film. Another thing I really like about this movie is that it manages to keep the spooky Halloween vibes from the first film that I loved so much, since it takes place right after. Another thing I really liked about Kills was the score and the music. They do a good job of replicating the vibes you would get from the John Carpenter Halloween movies, and I just thought that was really nice. And much like the first movie, I do really get a kick out of the visuals and the cinematography. I just think this movie looks great. But my biggest positive for the movie has to be the fact that they don't give some weird reason why Michael does what he does. He's just pure evil, he's the pure manifestation of evil, and that's why he enjoys killing, and he clearly seems to have some sort of fascination with death. I also really enjoyed the detail that Michael seems to get stronger the more and more he kills, and I don't know, I just kind of like the idea of that. Addressing one of the negatives that a lot of people have with this movie, I actually like that Laurie is benched for most of the movie. Considering how brutal her fight with Michael is, it makes sense that she would be in the hospital for most of it. Not only does this give the movie an opportunity to focus on some of the other characters, but they actually do something really smart in Halloween Kills that I don't see enough people give the movie credit for. And that's the fact that since Halloween 2018 decided to focus on Laurie's trauma and how it follows her, Halloween Kills decides to focus on the town and how Michael affects the residents of Haddonfield. I think the movie does do a good job of showcasing each individual's trauma when it comes to the legacy characters and all of the other residents of Haddonfield, and I think something that this movie does very well is showcasing how the paranoia and fear spreads around the town because of all of the stuff that's happened with Michael Myers. Now, with that being said, even though I do like some of the ideas present in this movie, I don't think everything this movie tried to do was great. For example, I think the social commentary on the news and fear-mongering could have been handled way better in the film. I'm also not a fan of the fact that the movie doesn't really have a main character. I would have loved if they focused on Allison and Karen more, but instead they kind of jump from character to character, and it's just very inconsistent. Another thing I wish they did better was the legacy characters, because while I do enjoy some of the moments with them, I feel I wanted more out of them. Especially characters like Tommy Doyle. I was just so disappointed with what they did with his characters. Him riling up the town constantly got annoying, and the evil dies tonight line, while it goes hard at first, they keep repeating it throughout the movie and it kind of just loses all meaning. Also, I feel like a lot of the legacy characters die, a little bit too many if you ask me, and they don't really get a chance to be fleshed out or do anything interesting with them in the story. I feel like a lot of that time in the film could have gone to Karen and Allison developing them more as characters, but that's just me. Another thing I really did not like about this movie is a lot of the stupid character decisions, especially if you've seen the movie, you would know a lot of these guys don't know how guns work. And I still hate the scene in the movie where Karen goes back to the Myers house and stands in the exact window where Michael's sister died. Like, what did you think was gonna happen? Also, there was tons of cop cars surrounding the Myers household. How did nobody see him sneak in and stab her? It makes no sense. It's almost like she wanted to die, and her death was completely unnecessary. She could have been a great character in Halloween Ends, but of course that never happened. Even with those negatives, I still think Halloween Kills is a great Halloween movie, and it's definitely one of my favorites, and I always rewatch this movie alongside Halloween 2018 when I rewatch that one. But with that being said, let's get into the most frustrating entry in this series, Halloween Ends. Oh man, this is definitely the movie where the entire trilogy falls apart, and I fully blame COVID for how this film turned out, because originally they were supposed to film Kills and this one back to back. I feel like if everything went according to plan, this movie not only would have been so much better, but I feel like the movie would have been way different from what we got. So Halloween Ends takes a very interesting approach to how it structures its story, because it decides to give us an anthology story mixed with a Halloween finale, and this is why me and so many other people cannot stand this film. And the reason they did this is because they wanted the film to kind of be an homage to Halloween Season of the Witch. And if you didn't already know, Halloween was supposed to be an anthology franchise, but people did not like Season of the Witch because it didn't have Michael Myers in it, so they ended up backpedaling, continuing to make this a Michael Myers franchise, and they completely abandoned the anthology angle. But over the years, people have showcased their love for that film, and I don't blame them, because Season of the Witch is a good horror movie on its own. It just would have been so much more successful if it wasn't attached to the Halloween franchise. And the filmmakers clearly wanted to pay respects to that film and give its own little time to shine by combining anthology elements with this finale, and it just doesn't work for me. I don't think you can have it both ways. This movie would have been absolutely perfect if it was strictly a finale and continued the stuff that was set up in the first two movies. Let's start with my positives before diving into my many negatives. For starters, I like that Allison actually has more to do in this movie compared to kills. She just feels more involved with the story, even though it largely focuses on Laurie as it should. I also like that they expanded on the relationship between Hawkins and Laurie set up in Halloween Kills. I just thought it was really sweet. And speaking of, the kills in this movie were pretty good. There aren't as many as kills, obviously, but the kills that we do get in this movie were really fun to watch. There's some really nasty stuff in here. And believe it or not, I actually enjoyed the character of Corey Cunningham to an extent. We'll get into that a little bit later. My final positive for Halloween Ends is the opening. It not only manages to be horrifying and unsettling without the use of Michael Myers at all, but I genuinely think it's one of the best parts of the film. With all of my positives out of the way, now I'm gonna start trashing on this film a little bit. Remember how I said that one of my biggest positives with Halloween Kills is that Michael seems to get more stronger the more he kills. Well, in this film, they completely abandon that concept, and Michael is reduced to nothing more than a shaky, weak old man. This is the biggest crime of this film, and I absolutely hate that they did this to my goat to this day. This also makes the fight scene between Laurie and Michael that these movies have been building up to completely worthless and unearned because of the fact that this is a nerfed Michael Myers and her victory doesn't even feel earned. Another thing that bothers me about this movie is how they handle Corey Cunningham. I get they were trying to give us an anthology storyline and bring it in with this finale, but as I said, it just doesn't work for me. So tell me why we are led to believe that Michael is the pure personification of evil in these films, but yet he decides to work with some random kid that he just so happened to pass on his evil to? Michael is not the kind of guy to team up with anyone, especially not this version. So it genuinely just doesn't make any sense to me. And the movie desperately tries to show that, oh yeah, we want to pass the torch onto Corey Cunningham and make him the new Michael Myers, when obviously we know they aren't going to do that by the end of the film. And I also just don't like how supernatural the way Corey gets Michael's evil passed on to him, and the way Michael takes it back by the end of the movie. This was supposed to be grounded and realistic, and now they're trying to shove supernatural elements into it, and it just really does not work. Also, Corey Cunningham kills out of vengeance and passion. He can't be the pure personification of evil like Michael is if he's killing just for simple vengeance. Also, this is just my opinion, but I feel that the pacing in this one isn't nearly as strong as the first two films. On its own, I think this movie is fine. It's an okay Halloween movie, but this was supposed to be the finale for everything you've been building up to this entire trilogy, and it just falls flat on its face. I genuinely think not only this is one of the worst Michael Myers movies, it's just one of the worst Halloween movies in general. Again, on its own, if this was not connected to those first two movies, it would be fine. But the fact that we were leading up to this, yeah, it's just very disappointing. Overall, I think Blumhouse did a decent job adapting good old Mikey. There were definitely a lot of missteps, and the finale was very disappointing, but looking back on this timeline, I think it's pretty solid overall. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in whatever my next project ends up being.